Okay, so today, Josephine Baker is being interred at the Pantheon in Paris, making her the first black woman to achieve this distinction. Josephine Baker was an entertainer, a dancer, singer, actress, comedian, and an activist, and a straight up war hero. Uh, she wasn't actually French. That was her adopted home. She actually came from St. Louis, Missouri. She was born in 1906, and at age 8, she became a child laborer. Age 11, she's a witness to the 1917 East St. Louis riots, where white folks are burning down and murdering black folks in the street. Well, burning down their houses and murdering black folks in the street. And this traumatizes her and sticks with her for the rest of her life. She leaves home and becomes a street urchin and a street performer, and eventually starts getting jobs in clubs and bars. And at age 13, in one of the bars, she meets her husband, who she marries at this age. And they only stay together for a few weeks. She decides to focus on her career, and which eventually takes her to New York, where she becomes a prominent chorus girl and known for her blackface routines and stuff like this. She's actually referred to in New York, when she's only about 15, as the highest paid chorus line dancer in the city. So her reputation keeps growing, and eventually she gets the attention of Paris, and she goes to Paris when she's about 17, 19, something like this, and takes the city by storm. Her performance is so much more unfettered by the strictures of American style. She performs damn near butt naked, and models butt naked as well. And I hesitate to think that she thought that this was exploitative. I think that she felt it freeing, especially if you watch her performances and see her work. Her most famous dance, the La Danse Sauvage, but as it's more famously known, the banana dance. She only wore a skirt of ornamental bananas and a few necklaces, titties, all just out there, and she just flaunted all around. Actually, we have some archival footage of the dance, but a little bit more watered down for American audiences. See, this was actually filmed in 1927, when she's like 21, in the Folie Bergère, where she really achieved her stardom, which she really conquered. Like, Folie Bergère is like American Idol and Masked Singer and Saturday Night Live all rolled into one for the day. So like this is the tops for Paris. And oh right, speaking of tops, she's wearing a top here because it was made for American audiences. But sorry, it looks cruddy, but thank God it exists. Anyway, she becomes the talk of the town, the Queen of Paris, Black Venus, Black Cleopatra, all these things, and the art community becomes obsessed with her, and this is like the greatest art community in like world history. I mean, Ernest Hemingway said she was the most sensational woman anybody had ever seen. He was famously infatuated with her. Pablo Picasso did paintings of her. I can't find any, but there's no shortage of fan art of her, as you can see here. Jean Cocteau, the poet and artist, befriended her, drew her a few times, and befriended her and helped catapult her career. And so at this time, she's just conquered the stage, and the next logical step for her is to get into movies, and she does this in 1927. She does The Siren of the Tropics, and it's a silent movie, but You see a lot of great of her working with her body, her physicality, her physical humor, and just you get to see so many different facets of her personality, and it's joyous. It's as stilted and as problematic as the actual movie is. She makes a few more movies. Well, she makes another movie the same year, Le Revue de Revue, the Show of Shows, the Review of Reviews. I'm not sure, which is more of like just a filmed version of her variety show, of her burlesque acts and stuff like that. And 1934 Zuzu also um, is more of a take on her burlesque performances. The 1935 Princess Tam Tam, I think, is fascinating in how breathtaking she is, and also in how really uncomfortable and problematic it is. But it also offers us just this delicious smorgasbord of all her talents, because it's a sound film. We get her singing, her dancing, her acting, her um, all of those things rolled into one, and it's beautiful and joyous and breathtaking. Um, However, apparently she did not enjoy her time making movies, so this would be the last movie she ever made. Not to mention it, though it was well received in press screenings in America, it didn't receive a wide release because it was squashed by the censorship board of the time, who found it too confrontational, read too black, and anyway, and feminine. Um, so, flash forward a few years, and World War II breaks out. She becomes an ambulance driver, and more importantly, she becomes a straight up spy. She uses her sort of like clout and celebrity to rub shoulders with German officials and stuff like that, and all the while, she's taking notes down, and she's delivering them to the resistance. And she would be decorated by none other than General Charles de Gaulle himself years down the line for her work, and recognized as a war hero. So she's done plenty by this time, but she wants to focus on her family, and an interesting family she has, to say the least. Now, Josephine Baker wanted to start something she called her Rainbow Tribe, which she did. She had 12 children from all different parts of the world. To name a few, she had a Norwegian kid, South Korean, Venezuelan, and African. And her dream was to start a sort of utopian multicultural society in her home in France, that would, sort of be a haven for underprivileged kids of all different cultures, and just sort of be some sort of perfect community, which is naive and yet beautiful, but also kind of awkward and weird. So do with that what you will. I haven't wrapped my head around it completely, but by all accounts, she was extremely fond of her kids. Like, look at this. And they have written and said things about her that couldn't be more warm and loving. So even though it's a bit weird, whatever, do with that what you will. So she worked on that for a while, and at this time, flash forward until like the 60s, when the civil rights movement is in full swing in the States, and she has been an activist in France for civil rights as well as multiculturalism, obviously, but she becomes really involved with it across the pond, to the point where in 1963, March on Washington, she actually is the opening act for Martin Luther. addressing more than 100,000 people at the Washington Monument. And she says something so naive yet beautiful. Again, she says in her speech, we're like salt and pepper, just like it should be. Something cute about that, and touching, and also sad, because we're still dealing with all these problems now. And she's so involved and so iconic in this movement that when Martin Luther King is killed and when he's assassinated, she's actually offered the position of being the unofficial leader of the civil rights movement in America. But she declines it because she's still working on her little utopia, and she's also still got a little bit of pizzazz left in her. She wants to make a comeback, so a comeback on the stage. So here we see her in the early 70s, just as fabulous as she was, but in a different way, as back in her early days, and just so vivacious and full of life. You wouldn't imagine that her final days were approaching. Here's actually her final interview in 1975, taken only a few weeks, if not days, before her death. And even though they're talking French, I don't understand French. Maybe you do. Maybe we can figure this out later. But you can just see that spark, that joie de vivre. Excuse me. And she just doesn't look like a woman that only a number of days later would be dead. Her memory and her legacy only continues to grow. Not only do we have a Josephine Baker Day, or streets named after her, things like this, but now she's interred in the Pantheon of Paris today, alongside French luminaries like Victor Hugo, Alexandre Dumas, Marie Curie, Voltaire, Rousseau, all these greats. Now she's there, and her immortality just continues to grow. And I hope, if this makes anybody curious, that you can go on your own journey with Josephine Baker and continue that legacy and continue to carry on her spirit